Okay, thank you. So I'm Paul Quarter from Perfect Golf Event, and today we're going to walk through what I use as all my checklists for golf events. And so we're going to start right from the golf course negotiations all through to the end when you're wrapping up your event. So there'll be some things that apply to you. Hopefully a lot of them apply to what you're doing. I've been doing golf events now for 16 years, and sort of I've compiled sort of the best of my lists in terms of how I manage a golf event. So hopefully you'll find it helpful and useful in having a successful event. On a housekeeping note, don't worry about copying everything down. There's a lot of things we're going to cover. I'm not going to read everything to you because there's some lists here that I'm going to send to you, but afterwards I'll be glad to send you an entire copy of the presentation so you'll have all the lists that you need for reference. So I just want to walk through the flow, cover the critical parts of managing a golf event, and hopefully you'll get some things that you'll find useful out of it. So thanks for attending, and let's go. When you're having a golf event, your ultimate objective, and I'm going to separate the fact that you're having a fundraising golf event and you're trying to raise funds, but your ultimate objective is to give people an event to remember. You want to make sure that you've got a well-organized, well-executed event that people will say, hey, that was so much fun and so well run. I'm going to come back. I feel like I want to give them my money again for a good cause because everything went really well. And that's the pressure. And I'm not sure everybody appreciates how much pressure it is running a golf event. But if you've been involved in planning one, you know there's a lot of pressure, a lot of details, a lot of things can go wrong, and a lot of things can go right if you do them properly and have a great event. You want to have a well-executed event. Players and sponsors are going to react to how your event is organized. They're giving you money for your charity, for your nonprofit, and so they want to feel like they're giving it to a professional organization. They also, a good experience is what generates interest in returning next year. So if they have a great experience, if people say, hey, that was really fun, like I'm showing you this photo of somebody who won a hole-in-one contest with us last fall, that won an $85,000 boat. Well, that was a good experience, and people will come back to that event because something fun and exciting happened. So that's one of the things to think about, is making sure you have the right kind of event so people will come back and build momentum year after year. And again, for those of you signing on late, I'll be glad to send you a copy of the presentation. We're also recording it as well. So I'm going to walk through a lot of different checklists on different areas of a golf event. Hopefully you'll find it useful, and then there's areas again that you that apply, maybe some things that won't apply to you at this point, but maybe they will as you're going forward. But hopefully you'll find it useful. So before you're having your golf event, a couple of critical things, and I have some organizers here now who are doing their first event, is a couple of really critical things before you even get started, is to make sure that you've got a strong message on why you're raising money. That's really important, is why are you raising the money? How's the money going to be used? People want to know that when they're supporting a golf event. You want to make sure that you've got a potentially effective, energized committee members. You've got people you can identify, and I'm going to go through the committee checklist in a minute. You have to have a database of potential players and sponsors. You can't really start a golf event thinking that you're going to bring a bunch of people in from the general public. That doesn't work. So before you even get started, you have to identify who are you going to go after as your players and sponsors. And your committee can help with that. And then do you have the initial startup funds to fund the golf course deposit, some of the marketing materials you need to get started. So there's some resources you have to look at. And of course, do you have the time to organize and execute an event? Most times you'll need 6 to 9 months to do it successfully. I've done some events where they wanted to get together and do it at the last minute, and we've done it in 60 days. You still have to do everything, you just have to move a little faster, but make sure you've got enough time to organize and execute the event so it's successful. Now, I'm going to go over the golf course, and this is a very important area for you. And some of you may already have negotiated with your golf course. You may have it already picked out, your date's already set. It doesn't mean you can't revisit some of these subjects. But this is really an area where I find that people don't spend enough time. So I want to go through some checklist items, and again, I'm not going to read them all to you because I'm going to send it to you, but I'm going to hit the highlights. So these are things that you should have asked the golf course if you already have a contract, and if you're starting planning an event, this is what you need to ask them. So there's lots of things. Make sure you've got their agreement before you have your meeting. Send the contract over to us so you can look at it before you meet with them. and asking for a couple referrals prior to the meeting. And then these are first round of things to think about, and I'm sure that you've thought of some of them, but a lot of people don't think of all these things. Like, are you going to make sure they don't have other players on the golf course? I've seen some public courses where you're having a golf event, but they still let other people play and practice, and that isn't going to work. Will they give you support from the golf course prior to your event? Will they do an email to the player database? So you can go through this list to make sure you've covered everything, make sure there's no sign and banner restrictions, but just that's the first page of questions. Then there's another page. So just when you think you've covered everything, you want to ask about the rain-out policy. You know, a lot of golf courses will have a policy that if you play 9 holes, it counts as a full event. Some will say if you play 3 holes, we can get a full refund or we reschedule. You need to make sure you understand all that. It even comes down to things like, is there internet access in the registration area? People forget to ask the golf course for free foursomes. They'll donate foursomes to your event to use for your raffle or for prizes. And just make sure that you get everything in writing. So again, I'm not going to read everything because we have a lot of lists to cover, but I think it's important for you and your committee to kind of go through this and say, hey, did we miss anything when we were planning our work with the golf course? Now, at the same time, the golf course is going to ask you questions. And if you want your event to get the best treatment from the golf course, you should be prepared as well. So if you're going in to call on a golf course, you know, they're going to ask you, what's your organization? How many times have you had the event? Who's your committee members? How many golfers? You know, what are you looking for in terms of how you're going to promote the event? What's your agenda? You want to have a professional, you want to be prepared so you look professional. That's a better response. And I'll tell you why. The number of golf events has gone up about 40% this year from what our experience is, people setting up websites with Perfect Golf Event. And it's because they can't have other events. They can't have galas or trivia nights. And so golf courses now have a lot of people looking for dates for golf events. And so you want to make sure when you're calling on them that you've got yourself and your act together so they look like, wow, this is a legitimate event. They're going to be successful. They don't want to book an event and have you call them a month before the event and say, well, I only got 30 golfers, so we're going to have to cancel. So be prepared yourself. Now let's talk about the committee. Your committee has got to be made up of motivated individuals and that have more than just a casual interest in your cause. You need dynamite people. You want to seek out business people who have contacts with outside your organization that can get more sponsors. And so here's some tips, and again, I don't want to read everything to you because it's lengthy, but I want you to have it, which is, you know, make sure that members know what's expected of them, that you're going to look to them to get players and sponsors. Get an agenda before every meeting. Make sure everybody's got some informal goals. They're volunteers, but make them say, hey, I'm going to try and get 2 teams and 2 sponsors. The main thing you want to work with when working with your committee is focus them on identifying players and sponsors. I see so many committees get sideways because they're talking about the menu, and they spend time talking about the player gift and what are we going to put in the goodie bags. Focus them on getting players and sponsors. The rest of that stuff, it can get worked out. When your committee checklists, again, I like having one central committee. You can have subcommittees that can meet before or after the central committee, but you want to keep everybody on the same page. You want to use conference calls for quick updates. We have to summarize everything. My events, every Monday, I send an event summary out to all my committee members so they know where we stand. So you might want to take some time on these 2 slides because committee members are a very important part of it. And again, I see about 10 or 12 more people came in late. I'll be glad to send you this whole presentation so you don't have to copy everything down. I want you to get the gist of what we're doing here. Now, I want you to take a look at your event format. 99.5% of the events out there have the same format. It's a 4-person scramble. I want you to think as you're going through this, what are we going to do to make our event different? And if you want, I have a recorded webinar up on perfectgolfwebinars.com that I did yesterday just on formats. But just think about doing something that might be more interesting instead of the 4-person scramble. Here's an event coming up in April for the Folds of Honor. And they just went to a whole completely different format with us. They just converted their thing to all par 3 holes. So they have 18 par 3 holes. They have a shootout at the end. Their first year they did it, they raised $106,000 net. They finished their event in 3.5 hours, and they're already sold out for 2021. So just maybe take a look at that webinar and get some ideas on what are you going to do for format. That's part of an important checklist. You might, and there's the kind of different formats you can look at. So you can go anywhere from doing, 18 regular holes with a shootout at the end, all the way to 18 par 3 holes. There's some events, if you were on my webinar yesterday, that I really like this format, where somebody's doing 18 holes in the morning, and they're going to have a par 3 event for 9 holes in the afternoon. What a great idea. So golfers can play the regular round in the morning, and people who don't want to play in the morning can play 9 holes in the afternoon. Then everybody gets together for the awards reception. Or they could play both rounds. I would if I was taking the day off. So just some ideas. I also, when you're meeting with your committee, is to go over what are your event day highlights. This is a big part of your checklist is what do we have going on. This is an event called the Backstoppers. Raises a net of $100,000. They've been around for, I think this is their 6th or 7th year. Excuse me. And you can see that we set up a bunch of stuff before the event. We have a number of things on the course, and we have a lot of things after golf that attracts golfers. And so when you're meeting with your committee member, what you want to do is sit down and go, what are we doing in all these areas to attract people? So that's a big part of planning your event, is what's going to attract players and sponsors to your event. And even for this one, we're doing a fire truck ball drop, which is what it will raise a lot of money. We just raised $20,000 doing one down in Jacksonville. So those are things. And then we're also doing a super ticket for their event, where instead of selling them like $5 for mulligans or $10 for mulligans here, raffle tickets here, for $100, they're going to buy entry into the putting contest, the chipping contest, entry into the fire truck ball drop. We have an online raffle called Golf Surprise, 2 mulligans and a discount in the pro shop. And we're going to pick somebody to take a shot for $1 million. So it's a real easy way to put everything in one transaction so you don't have a lot of individual transactions. Again, having contests and things for your event, you want to make sure that's part of your checklist. What are you doing for hole-in-one contests? What are you doing for guaranteed winner contests, like closest to the pin, things like that? You can get our tournament brochure anytime you want just by sending us a note. And again, hole-in-one contests are a big part of your event because they'll attract people. And I don't like doing cars necessarily because they're usually a 2-year lease. And it's a pain. You got to still do a credit report. You got to get rid of your existing car. But there's lots of other cool things you can do for hole-in-one contests, like this event did, and they converted to an all par 3 event. But you can see all the cool hole-in-one contests we helped them develop, like wine tastings and vacations and Pebble Beach and Disneyland. So you can do a lot of things, and again, that attracts people to your event. As we're moving forward, and we're going process now, we're going to head all the way to wrapping up your event. You want to make sure as part of your checklist you've got great sponsorship packages. You want to offer a lot of sponsorships, a lot of different sponsorships. That's important. And most events don't offer enough sponsorships, so potential sponsors don't have enough choices to fit their budget. So you might want to make sure you've got a lot of sponsorships offered. You might not sell them all, in fact you won't, but you'll get more sponsorship dollars by offering more. And you also want to make sure that with all your sponsorships, you've built in a lot of sizzle to them. So you don't want to say, hey, become my title sponsor, and you get your name on the banner, the welcome banner. You want to say, no. Here's all the stuff you're going to get ahead of the event. Here's the stuff you're getting during the event. Here's the stuff you're going to get after the event. So pack them together with sizzle, because people have a lot of choices for supporting golf events, and you want them to say, hey, I think I could get some new business out of this event. And again, if you want our sample sponsor packages, you can see here how we put our packages together with lots of sizzle. So there's tons of things included in all of them. So if you'd like a copy, you can listen to my webinar, 21 Ways to Sell Sponsorships to a Fundraising Golf Event, or you can get the sample sponsorship packages. Just send us a note. But I want you to think about your sponsorships, revisit that with your committee, and you can always, even if you already started, you can always add more sponsorships. It's a moving target. Keep adding more. The more you do, the more you're going to raise. Now, before I get into the event day checklist, couple other things to think about. Make sure you put your financial plan together. Put in all your financial revenue projections, your expenses. You'll come up with a net revenue. You can use this spreadsheet for it. It'll help you calculate it. And then if you're not hitting the right number, you can look at your expenses, or you can look at your revenue and say, hey, we need to get more revenue. One important checklist for you and your group is the marketing checklist. What are you doing to market your event? Do you have your website up with Perfect Golf Event? What's your save the date campaign? Here's one we just did for an event in Denver. Do you have a brochure? What's your email strategy? What's your social media campaign? Do you have a press release? Do you have an early bird offer to get people to say, hey, register before April 15th and you save $20? Do you have a referral campaign? These are all elements of a successful events marketing campaign. So you want to have professional marketing materials. This is like a 4-page brochure we did for an event that's coming up in 2022. You can see how far in advance I plan my events. We're already going for 2022. This is a 4-pager, very professional. Some of them are already sold. So you want to have a brochure and direct people to the website. You want to have social media images, and our team will prepare them for you if you're using our website. And remember that Facebook and Instagram and Twitter use different sizes, so we prepare them all to fit the sizes so you can give them out to your committees and say, hey, would you post this on your Facebook? Would you post this on your Twitter account? Would you post this on Instagram? Helps you use social media. Very important to have a press release. And this is here's a sample one, and if you can you'll get this copy, you can read it. But have a press release. It helps you have credibility. You look like a more professional event. You can recognize your sponsors, recognize why you're raising the funds. It doesn't always get picked up by the newspapers, but what it will do is make your sponsors and potential players and sponsors think like, wow, this is a serious event. They know what they're doing. And you want to put that all together on a marketing plan. And here's our template we use for marketing. And you can plug this in. So as activities are planned, you and your committee, you can say, okay, we got things going on in February, April, May, and you can complete this whole thing so you can see where you have gaps, where you're not doing anything to promote your event. It's a really good tool to work with your committee to make sure you've got all that done. And again, here's one with a sample one, filled out a lot of information, and I'll be glad to send you the marketing template as well. So you want to have your financial things done, and you want to have your marketing template. The template also has some other tabs where you can track progress. So you can plug in your revenue goals for sponsorship revenue by month. How's it coming in by month? How many players are coming in? So you can look at player registrations. There's different tabs on that marketing calendar thing I'll send you, so you can have ability to track it. You can track key activities. You can update your committee members with weekly status. It also has a place where you can plug in all your potential sponsors and who's responsible and the committee members for following up with them. Very important, because you might have someone who says, I can't sponsor this year, but I want to be involved next year. So you add them to your list and you make a note, they're going to be in next year. And so this is kind of a living, breathing animal that you always have for your event that you keep expanding with. Make sure you're using technology, and make sure that you've got a website with online registration. Events that use online registration with credit card processing raised 22% more last year. Because people could pay online, they could buy additional things like mulligans and super tickets and raffle tickets. And it's just an easier way for you to process your event, especially with COVID. You want to handle lots of paper. And, you know, my son hasn't written a check in 10 years. He wouldn't even know how to write a check or fax something. So you make sure you've got an online registration system. And hopefully you're using Perfect Golf Event. Here's all the features that we have that'll make it easier for you to promote your event and accept registrations. We also have on Perfect Golf Event, and I won't go through all these, but once you're using our website, we have a series of timeline tasks that are based on your event date. So, 5 months out, you get a list that here's what you should be doing. 4 months out, here's what you should be doing. 3 months out, here's what you should be doing. It's a reminder that you'll get from us automatically that tells you the things you should be focused on. So you know to focus 5 months out on something different than 30 days out. So you'll get these automatically if you're using Perfect Golf Event. Now, this comes a big area. This is volunteer assignments. Again, a couple for you late sign-ups. We'll be glad to send you the presentation, and I'm recording it. Volunteer assignments. This is really important part of any event. I mean, I've got a great spreadsheet for you on it, but make sure that you've got, some people will charge the volunteers a little sign-up fee to cover their shirt, hat, lunch, and things like that. Don't be shy on doing that. You're going to have a lot of volunteer assignments, things to spread out during the day, and I'm going to show you that. So this spreadsheet, which I'll be glad to send you, shows you for an event all the different assignments. So it has the tasks, and it has the number of volunteers required for that task. I'm going to go back. So you can look through and say, hey, for 7 days out, what do I need? The event day, how many people do I need for registration? How many people do I need for the contest? This is a really helpful thing for you planning the number of volunteers you're going to need for your event. And again, I'll be glad to send you the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet also has 2 other tabs. One is something where you can start to track the supplies you need, and also where you can track the signs and banners that you're going to need to brand your event. So a very helpful checklist that'll help you with your list. We also have a volunteer training manual. Now this gets customized for every event because events may be doing different things. Like this is for the Backstoppers event we do, and the Backstoppers have a shootout. They have hole-in-one contests. So we do a manual that they can send out to the volunteers ahead of time. And it tells the volunteers what to expect, what the schedule is, what to bring. You know, make sure you bring a chair, bring an umbrella. Even though it's not raining, it'll keep the sun off your head. Bring sunscreen. You know, bring something to keep cold water. It tells them how to measure things on the event. So again, this is a very useful tool for your event, and I've got sample guides if you'd like them. But this is very helpful, and you should prepare one for your event. Again, you want to be professional with your volunteers. Now, this is very important. We did a survey, and we found that 72% of the players said that they judge the event on how well it is organized, starting with the registration process. There's no bigger nightmare in all of golfdom than walking up and having 15 people standing in line trying to get registered. So you've got to fix that. I'll show you a couple tips in a minute. But understand, from the minute they get there, the bag drop all the way through to get into their carts, you better be good because they're going to remember that going forward. So make your event special. You know, golfers have time to spend. So make sure that all golfers know what's happening. What's the date? What's the dress code? What's the forecast? Where's the bag drop? Remind them to bring cash for the contest. You know, set up a registration table. And make sure you, what I do with mine is I split the registration into alphabetical. So if you're A through M, you go this line. N through Z, you go on a different line. We let people check in now through email and text. That's a good way to avoid lines. You just want to avoid any kind of lines. And again, I'm not going to read everything here because I'm going to send this to you. I use radios. There's nothing more professional than somebody pulls up, they take their bag out, and you look, have the bag drop person looks at the bag, and there's a name tag on it that says, John Jones is coming. Now on the radio, you call up to registration and say, Mr. Jones has arrived. Now when Mr. Jones gets there, the table knows he's coming. They've got a packet ready and said, Mr. Jones, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. Here's your packet. You're all set to go. Go to the carts over there. Man, you're in the top 1% of all the golf events in the world if you use the radios like I use for my events. You know, make sure you got these other things. You got rule sheets. You know, you've got easy things. Again, I'm not going to read all these things, but just make sure all your players know what's to happen, what to bring. You know, bring the extra book. Remember, some people only play in a golf scramble once or twice a year, and they might not bring enough golf balls. They might not bring, they know about soft spikes. They can't bring metal spikes. They got to have collared shirts. Just make sure that you've got everything. Tell them to bring some money for tips for the bag drop. Make them feel comfortable. You don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable when they come to a golf event. So you want to say, hey, come on in. Here's how to prepare. And when they get there, they're not embarrassed. They didn't bring the wrong shoes, or they're not wearing a tank top, God forbid. And then that's part of your responsibility to make them feel comfortable. Now, let's go through your event day checklist. And I know I go quickly on this stuff, but there's so much to cover. And I'm going to send it to you, but I want you to get the gist. So pre-event, you've got to confirm all your team members. Now, remember, if you're using Perfect Golf Event, you can send a link out automatically 5 days before your event or whenever you want to. I usually do it 5 days ahead of time. They can update their team members automatically online. That's a great thing so you don't have a lot of confusion the day of the event. But make sure you've got all your stuff. You've got your cart signs, you've got your goodie bags. If you're going to have raffle tickets, you've delivered all your banners and signs and awards to the thing. If you have a photographer, you've confirmed them. You've done a final walkthrough with the golf course. You know where the signs and banners are going to go. And that leads me to this. Make sure you've got a sign plan. So for all my events, I lay out the golf course and I know where I'm putting everything. You know, where's my course entrance? Where's my bag drop? Where am I putting directional signs? Where are my signs to the putting green? Where's my signs for all that? So you want to make sure you've got a really good system so people don't feel uncomfortable and get lost. And you can do signs like, you know, here's the parking sign, here's a welcome sign, here's registration, A through L, M through Z, where's the check-in, where I'm putting. So you want to make sure your event is well branded. You can put sponsor logos on a lot of the things, but you want people to get there and go, wow, this looks like they know what they're doing. I just want to get across that message again. So your event day checklist, again, is you want to make sure you arrive early. You set up your signs and banners. The bag drops open. You got everything placed on the carts. You've got your registration packets ready. These are all things that you need to do the day you get there. Couple tips on your event day agenda. Make sure it's important to publish an event so everybody knows what the agenda is. I email everybody prior to the event. You can use Perfect Golf Event to do that, reminding them where to arrive, tee off time, bring cash. I have my volunteers arrive 90 minutes prior so we can do some training. If you're having a putting contest, don't do the putting contest during the event. That's a big no-no. Have your putting contest before the event. Tell people, hey, the putting contest is going to end. Go over, get your putts in. That doesn't slow your event down. You want to make sure you're out on the golf course, monitoring the pace of play. So if it looks like your event's going to go 40 minutes long because everybody's slow, or it's going faster because everybody's fast, you can adjust any of your post-event activities. And if you're having an auction, make sure you have a way to handle the payment processing. It's another nightmare at the end of an event when people bid on auction items and they have to go figure out how to pay, and you turn around and there's 15 people trying to pay. You got to avoid all those lines, especially in COVID, but just in general, you want people to have a good impression when they arrive with no lines and when they depart with no lines. If you're going to have an award ceremony, here's a checklist of things to think about with your award ceremony, what the agenda should be, what you can cover all that, how to acknowledge your volunteers, your guests, maybe give sponsors a chance to talk. It's always good to have somebody with a personality that talk, so they have a good personality as a master of ceremonies. So it's a good way to set up your award ceremony. And as you're wrapping up your event, this again is critical information, make sure you've got somebody to clean up. You know, you're responsible for getting all the signs off the course and cleaning up. Don't leave a mess. I set up a committee evaluation meeting so we can get together after a couple of weeks just to go through all the notes. But I tell them right away, make any notes during the event of things we have to approve, pay your bills, collect your fees, send out thank you letters, make sure you've got a golf course set up. And what I try and do is I try and sell my sponsorships right there. Say to people, hey, didn't you like it? Why don't you be a sponsor again next year? Get them pinned down. Same thing. After your event, if you're happy with the golf course, book it. Make sure you have golfers fill out a form. This is really an important part. Make sure you've got something where you're collecting all the information, because remember, 75% of the people that come to a golf event are guests. And so you want to collect that information so you can tell them about next year. So make sure you collect it. Sometimes I use my raffle for that. But I want the name, email, and phone number of everybody who's there. And you want to collect that. If you have a website with us, you can copy over that website right after your event so you can set up, and I'll talk about that in a minute. You can use SurveyMonkey to send out a free survey, and I'll talk about posting photos as well. Do your financial review. Make sure all the sponsors have been surveyed, and then do a press release kind of summarizing your event and send it out to everybody because they want to know how successful the thing was. Now, next year, you want to make sure you've launched your event right after your event. And this is what I do. Like, here's one of my events that I already finished this year, and I have it already set up for February of 2022. The day after our event, I put it up, and I sent a link out to people and said, hey, thanks. Didn't we have a great time? Here's a link to the website for 2022. Please go on in and sign up now. We have, reserve your spot. We expect to sell out again. Sometimes I'll give them early bird offer, and I'll say, hey, sign up now so we know how many people are coming next year, and we'll give you free raffle tickets or give you a discount. I also have registration forms at the event. So as people are leaving, I say, hey, wasn't this great fun? Put your beer down for a minute. Why don't you sign up right now for next year? Here's the date. Can I reserve your spot for you for next year? Sure, go ahead, put me down. Now you're not pinning them down, but at least you can say, hey, thanks for doing it. Send them a reminder to put it on their calendar. As long as you got them, pin them down, especially if you had a great event that was exciting. We have a new feature you can use too, which is a great way to get people to your new website. We have a thing called Photo Gallery. And this is a nice system because it allows you to put up as many photos as you want into the photo gallery. Excuse me. You can upload photos. Golfers can view them and they can download the photos. You can actually charge for the photos if you want, like $1 a piece if you want to raise some money. But there's another feature. You can also sell it as a sponsorship. So you can see this. So this is a great sponsorship because everybody's going to come look at the photos, and they can have the sponsor's logo is going to be right there. So I put the photo gallery up on my new website and say, hey, you want to see all the photos from this year's event? Go to the new website. You'll see the date for 2022, and you can download the photos. But we've added one cool feature of this, which is even if you want to do the photos for free, they have to put their name, last name, email address in to download the photos. So first of all, you'll have their contact information, and secondly, they can donate. So maybe they donate, they download 15 photos, and they go, hey, you're not charging me for the photos, but I'm going to give you $20 for the charity. They can put any amount they will. So it's a great way to have website traffic, sell it as a sponsorship, and get additional donations. And this is a free feature for anybody who's using our Birdie, Eagle, or Ace package. And it's going to be launching next week. It'll be on there, so you can just set up your account. I love this. So anyway, I know I went quick. I hope I covered what you wanted me to cover. If you'd like a copy of the presentation, then just send a note to me at Paul at Perfect Golf Event or send it to support at Perfect Golf Event, and we'll be glad to help. So listen, thank you very much for listening. If there's anywhere we can help you have a successful event, we'd be glad to do it. Be safe. Have a great event this year, and we'll talk to you soon.